Come, let us explore the meditation classic, Great Garuda in Flight, and then meditate like a Jedi. This text was composed many centuries ago by the great Buddhist reformer Vajra, known in Tibet as Garuda. It was translated from the Tibetan into the English by Keith Doman. So here's my intention. I'd like to read this passage, explain this passage, and then conclude by reading it yet again. Kind of like an Oreo cookie. Hey, this free-form field, illusory and non-graspable like space, nowhere located, has no object of focus. An unrestricted experiential process occurs in the slightest subtle projection. The concept of pure being, unknowable itself, is self-sprung awareness, a ubiquitous, unthinking, authentic practice, and this free-form field needs no alteration. Okay. So I'm going to do an edit. So bear with me, if you please. And let's hit delete, and let's hit bullets. That's what it's called? Yes. Okay. Okay, so now let's explain this mofo. This free-form field, it sounds like a tongue twister, does it not? So free-form field is a reference to all that could be noticed. All the sights, all the sounds, all the sensations, all the flavors, all the scents, all the emotions, all the intentions, all the thoughts, all the memories, or the imaginings. They're always changing all the time, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, sometimes as quick as lightning, sometimes as slow as a glacier, but everything is in flux. As we relax into our exhalation, thanks to the workings of our parasympathetic nervous system, all that we notice during our inhalation could feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and even less tangible. At least partially, at least for a moment, until we breathe in again, and the entire cycle begins anew. And that's exactly how it's supposed to work. Just like the ticking pendulum of a grandfather clock in a hallway of a house, or the entryway of a house, as our chest swells and sinks with inhalation and exhalation, we shift from our sympathetic to our parasympathetic nervous systems, back and forth, perceiving and processing. That's the path. Perceive and process. Vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Nowhere located has no object of focus. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever experience of here we might have had during our previous inhalation could feel as if it was melting into the simplicity of mental energy. This has no object of focus, and for this I'm going to drag you kicking and screaming to a set of diagrams. I'm going to tap button 9. When we make the mistake of actively focusing and actively analyzing, we exhaust the dorsolateral and medial prefrontal cortex to the point that we could begin presenting with symptoms of depression, no less triggering our amygdala, the seat of both anxiety and aggression. That is not sustainable. Fortunately, neither the amygdala nor the prefrontal cortex constitute the entirety of our central nervous system. Consider, if you will, both aspects of our spinal cord. Together, they are known as our autonomic nervous system. When we cooperate with our autonomic nervous system passively, the anxiety and aggression of our amygdala is calmed, and the empathy of our anterior cingulate gyrus is gently stimulated, which is fabulous, is it not? So how do we do this? How do we cooperate with both facets of our autonomic nervous system? We'll start with the first facet. Mindfulness. Mindfulness or noticing is simple. Every time we inhale, we are wired to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, known as the sympathetic nervous system. It has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way. It has evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice mind's antics of perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination. It has evolved to help us to notice all manner of phenomena without pushing or pulling at the external or internal, physical or mental, pleasurable or painful, interesting or boring, glorious or grotesque. And the easiest way to do this, the most sustainable way to practice, the most efficient way to practice this mindfulness is to silently and mentally recite the verb watch every time we feel our chest swell with breath. We turn our attention now to exhalation. Every time we breathe out, which inevitably we must, we are wired to automatically exercise the very bottom and the tippy top of that same spinal cord. This aspect of our autonomic nervous system is known as our parasympathetic nervous system. And it has evolved to help us to physically relax during our exhalation to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and even as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Any good English teacher will remind us that a simile is only as useful as it is relatable. Therefore, we have to ask the question, what? What is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morning, which, although could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel non-graspable to the hand? And so we see that both emptiness and selflessness, or no self, are just metaphors for the phenomena that is available during each exhalation. What is the most efficient way for us to practice meditation? Simply silently and mentally recite the verb rest every time we feel our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale. So we have forsaken active focusing for passive noticing. This is more than just the self-important wordplay of the weak-minded. This is actually using different parts of the brain. Now you might say, well, I have a front of the brain. Am I ever supposed to use it? Yes. How do we know when to use it or how to use it? Here's the trick. The more we cooperate with our autonomic nervous system, maybe as little as once every 12 hours, the more our choices and our utterances and our deeds could begin to flow, not from calculated contrivance, not from wild scatterness, but instead from love's deeply centered spontaneity. This is known by many names. Some people call it right effort, or effortless effort, or doing without doing, or wu wei, or going with the flow, or expedient means. But this is the key to using the remainder of our brain in the most sustainable, the most efficient way. When we look at the biographies or autobiographies of Nobel laureates, of scientists who've had important and great breakthroughs, they came to a place where all their active analysis and all their active focus failed them. They came to a dead end, and then they had to walk away and distract themselves either with recreation or rest, and then boom, the answer came to itself. And so success really does leave clues. It's important to use all of our brain, but in the most sustainable way. Let's go back to the opening text. Welcome. So no object but focus, because we are noticing not only vulnerably and passively and viscerally, but randomly. Whatever comes up. It is as if we're at a theater to see a play. And we are just the audience member. We're not the producer, not the director, not the playwright, not the thespian up on the stage. We're just some bloke what sits in the audience watching the caperings of the people on the platform. So we sit centered in the sphere of our own awareness, and different things pass through it, like meteor showers in the desert sky. Let's continue. An unstructured experiential process occurs in the slightest subtle projection. So this is not a question of superstitious belief. This is not a question of pseudo-intellectual conceptualization. It's messy. It's unstructured. If you know what messy is, then live with a cat or live with a dog, and you will soon find out what unstructured looks like. And so this is simply a question of experience. It doesn't matter if what emotion we experience, doesn't matter what sensation we experience. It just matters that we are available for the process, the complete process, whether the experience is external or internal or physical or mental or pleasurable or painful or interesting or boring or glorious or grotesque. The concept of pure being, unknowable itself, is self-sprung awareness, ubiquitous, unthinking, authentic presence. So authentic presence is just a fancy way of practicing, of noticing vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. It is this process of perceiving and processing that purifies us. It is not actively knowable. We cannot It does not submit to dissection. It does not reward our controlling tendencies. And for that, I'd like to show you another diagram, if I may. There is strong archaeological evidence that our Paleolithic ancestors enjoyed a culture that trained people to be flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. We found human remains that presented injuries that were occurred in childhood, and yet the remains were of an adult, which inferred not only that the child was cared for by members of the clan. That's a huge deal. That speaks well of cooperation and kindness. This all changed after about 290,000 years when during the advent of proto-capitalism during the Neolithic Revolution, where the society did a 180 and began promoting being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. So our birthright, regardless of culture, our birthright is to be flexible and laid back. Being rigid and controlling, the more rigid and controlling we remain, the more unhappy and unfulfilled we will be. The more flexible and laid back we are, the more happy and more fulfilled we will be. This is the free-form field, and this free-form field needs no alteration. I don't know about you, but in my desperation and in my naivete, I was an acolyte of many teachers of manifesting. And they told me that some thoughts were good and some thoughts were bad, and I should push at some and pull at others, and quick like a bunny, make a vision board of all that I wanted. But on the path of radical non-duality, what we experience is that as we relax into our exhalation, whatever pain or pleasure we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as if it was melting into the simplicity of simply mental energy. You might say, does that mean we do nothing while our neighbors are murdered by Gestapo? No. The more we practice, the more we cooperate with our autonomic nervous system once every 12 hours or so, the more our choices, utterances, and deeds are guided by love's deeply centered spontaneity. The question is not, do we take action? The question is our action going to be contrived and rigid? Is our action going to be scattered? Or is it going to flow from, or is it going to be as centered as it is spontaneous? Any great warrior, any great athlete talks about being in the zone as being integral or integral to their greatest successes. Mindfulness and meditation are profound tools to not only occasionally access the flow state, but to make it into a defining habit. There's a fourfold path of mastery. There's ignorance of ignorance, awareness of ignorance, conscious, awareness of competence and ignorance of competence. Most of us don't have to think to blow our nose or use the toilet or brush our teeth or tie our shoes or ride a bike because we've mastered those skills. Meditation is the key that unlocks the door, that helps us to master the flow state, that helps us to most skillfully respond when our nightmares leave our slumber and put on uniforms and murder our neighbors. Monsters are real. To quote one of my favorite physicians, Dr. Jill Stein, we are the heroes we've been waiting for. And if you're as geeky as me, you've seen enough movies to know there's always a training montage. The peace and the love and the joy and the wisdom generated by this path of mindfulness and meditation become that which fuels our community organizing and our mutual aid and the taking of actions in the most sustainable and effective manner. When we look at the biographies of great luminaries, when we watch perhaps X, or when we watch Judas and the Black Messiah, we see that the people who did the most good were not only smart, were not only passionate, were centered and wise. Not just clever, but deeply wise. Whether we become those people or whether we assist those people directly or indirectly, the best way for us to help our neighbors. Well, it's kind of like this. It's a cliche, but it's true. When the plane is losing altitude and the cabin is depressurized and the masks drop from the ceiling, first you put the mask on your face and then you make sure your neighbor to your left and your right have successfully put masks on their face. Because if you're passing out, you can't help them. The mask on our face is mindfulness and meditation. The mask on their face is community organizing and mutual aid. Having completed our opening lesson, we can now shift gears. It is Yoda early Monday morning. At least it is here in Southern California. It's still dark outside. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi after about 30 seconds. Oops, wrong button. After about 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is the Dzogchen Semde Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School for more than 30 years. I have harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyperfocus to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I can become your personal, nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friends, to meditate like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. So you'll notice at the top left-hand side of the screen, they're the essential instructions for mindfulness and meditation. As we breathe in, as we feel our lungs swell with breath, We silently and mentally recite the verb watch as we feel our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale. We silently and mentally recite the verb rest. Please do not be shy. Feel free to gently adjust your legs as you need to. We can practice mindfulness and meditation lying down, sitting up, standing up, walking. We can even practice it while making love. Our job is not to actively suppress our thoughts or emotions. Au contraire, our job is to notice them vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly as we breathe in. And our job is to physically relax as best we can as we breathe out. That's it. It's just that easy. That is why the Buddha assured his readers, his students, that it is possible to master his path in as little as 7 days. We could touch the tip of our left thumb to the lowest set of creases on his left little finger, thus keeping track of our first set of 16 inhalations. Let's rest this left hand palms up in our lap. Every time we inhale, every time we silently and mentally recite the verb watch during our inhalation, we could advance our right thumb up the creases and tips of its fingers. Let's do this together right now, beginning with the little finger. Having come to the tip of my right index finger, I've run out of places upon which to rest the tip of my right thumb. Therefore, I turn my attention to my left hand and advance my left thumb. And this is how we keep track of 16 sets of 16 inhalations each. 16 inhalations takes a little more than a minute. 16 sets takes about a little more than 20 minutes. During our first 20 minutes, if we wanted to, we could rest the great knuckle, the base of our right index finger, upon the tip of our left index finger. After 20 minutes, we can find we can use a different knuckle. And so what we're counting are collections of 16 sets. We're counting 16 sets, and we're counting 16 inhalations. Now, this could seem overwhelming. The antidote is repetition. Hang out with me once every 12 hours and meditate with me. And within a week or two, this system you can master. Here is the secret to understanding the Heart Sutra. Whatever form as we relax into our exhalation, whatever form we might have experienced during our previous inhalation could feel like no form. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever mind we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel like no mind. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever chaos we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel like no chaos. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever fear we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could feel like no fear. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever peace we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could feel like no peace. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever attachment we might have noticed during our previous inhalation can fleetingly feel like no attachment. The word mantra literally means mind protection, and the ultimate form of mind protection is simply cooperating with our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system in coordination with our breathing in such a way that we watch and rest. That's it. Do that and everything else takes care of itself. We can now begin collecting. To keep track of our second collection of 16 sets of 16 inhalations, we could rest the great knuckle at the base of our right middle finger upon the tip of our left middle finger, palms up in our lap. The moment you have a specific question, oh, you're welcome, Nate. The moment you have a specific question about the philosophies or techniques of Taoism, Buddhism, Dzogchen, Tantra, Zen, or Mahamudra, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions about every 5 minutes or so. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 3 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's second exploration of the meditation classic Great Garuda in Flight, as well as meditating like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.